uptight, wanna let loose. I was dreaming of bigger things and wanna leave my old life behind. Not a yes sir, not a follower. Fit the box, fit the mold, have a seat in the foyer. Take a number. I was lightning before the thunder.
Well, as a player, he's done it all, and win, lose or draw, Luke Hodge always remained the warrior, but always, it seemed, finished the battle with a smile on his face. We're lucky to have him in the studio. Welcome to you, Luke, and congratulations. It was a bit of a surprise, but like we've all found out, retirement eventually comes.
Yeah, it does. It's been a pretty long day, but it was good to get the family in there and I guess get out of the road.
When did you finally make the decision that it's going to be at the end of this season?
When we signed on last year, it was more of a, if it all goes to plan, they'll finish up this year. And then I guess it's really, I definitely made the decision probably the last month, just when all the young guys have really stepped up. We've had a lot of injuries through our back line, and I think there was Jack Gunts and myself down there the weekend, and the other 5 guys were under 25 games, and the way they played, I think it's just right for the future of the footy club for them to take charge next year.
It's always an emotional time when a long career draws to a close, and you've played with so many guys for 10 years plus. How did the moment go when you had to address the players and tell the playing group?
It went very quickly. I've never been a big one of getting up in front of the group and talking. That's probably why we did it, the 300 and the retirement and the one. But yeah, I think it went for about 2 minutes and just sort of said it wasn't a real surprise. I guess the guys there probably knew my mindset and probably knew that it was going to be my last year, so I was short and sharp. And
manage the tears? No tears?
No, I don't think so. I think when I get nervous, I get a bit of a croaky voice. When I spoke about my family, I got a little bit of an emotional croaky voice, but I think it was more nerves than anything else.
How did you approach the off-season, Hodge, going into the season? Did you think it was going to be your last year? What were the conversations you had with Clarko during the off-season specifically about how long he could play for?
Well, I'd stepped down from captain, and I knew that throughout the pre-season it was going to be a bit more relaxed. I didn't have as much responsibility, and then throughout the season, it's just pretty much there to help Rough. Anything I could do with help Rough and the other leaders, but anything else around there. When you play a game of football, you're the same. You're competitive. Obviously, we played with younger guys, so you had to be a bit more patient than what you did in the past. But everything else around the footy club has been very similar.
I thought there was a moment on the weekend when you made your decision, to be honest. I just want to show you a bit of vision here that you might concur or not. You're going to smash this.
But if you had Mummy running down behind you, I could hear him panting behind me. No, I've grabbed it, went to kick, and it's... Yeah, you get to a stage, if you can't hold the ball, you've got to give up. And it actually came off all right once I kicked it out of the air, but it probably wasn't one for the highlight reel.
Have you thought about what's coming up in the next phase of your life? Clearly you can go straight into the media. I know Chris Fagan would love to have you up in Brisbane. He said so in that chair last week. Is there any chance you'll be an assistant coach next year, or are you going to run the New York Marathon as has been declared?
After being in footy for so long, more than likely I'd probably have a year or so in media, or a few years in media. I've really enjoyed I did some coaching at Xavier for 3 years and really enjoyed that. And then this year with the younger guys, I've enjoyed this year more than probably last year, just the fact that you can teach guys while you're still out there being a part of the footy club. But after being with it for so long, I'd probably have to take a step back and be a dad and do school drop-offs, school pick-ups until my wife kicks me out of the house and tells me to go and get a job.
Jared mentioned the New York Marathon. I believe it's on the agenda, but not because you're desperate to run a marathon. Is it part of a bet?
I did. We'd actually organised to do the marathon, and then a couple former teammates had very strong doubts that I'll be able to run it, so we might have a bit of a wager on it as well.
And you've got to stay under 93 kegs, is that right?
That's another bet from Bradley Sewell. Yes, I've got to stay under 93 kilos, and then Monkey's got one that I've got to be under 100 kilos by a certain date. And then I think the marathon was with Dicko and Louis was a couple of bottles of Grange, if I can complete it or not. So.
4 premierships. Is the first one the one that sticks in your mind the most, or are the ones as captain mean more to you?
Oh, they all mean a lot, and they're all for totally different reasons. The fact of 08 was a young team who no one gave us a chance to win. 13 was coming back after 2 years where we probably, people classified us as chokers, being in a prelim and a granny. And then you got the Bud one, and against Sydney beat us in 2012. So all of them have different reasons, but none more important than the other.
Are you surprised at the trials and tribulations the Bulldogs are going through at the moment?
I think they've been harshly criticised. Last year, people have been talking about the Doggies if they were the best team all last year. They had the best the last 4 games of the year, which is probably the most important. But they finished the end of the season in 7th spot. So people have come out thinking they're going to be unbeatable at the start of the year. I think Sydney were a team that finished on the top last year. So I think people, as far as, have given them a pretty hard ride as far as being reigning premiers and not living up to it.
Was that 2009 season when you say you had the premiership hangover after winning the flag the year before? Was that the most important lesson the Hawthorn group learned, and it was a big part of their success going forward after that?
I'd say there's 2 main lessons we've learned across the journey that's probably stick in my head. Is we did get happy with ourselves. We came back, and it wasn't a massive numbers. Like, we had our time trials were a little bit slower, our skin folds were a little bit higher. We probably enjoyed it as a young group a little bit too much. That's probably one of the biggest lessons. And then the other one was in the finals that we lost in 11 and 12. Blokes trying to do too much at the big times rather than just sticking to the basics, the fundamentals of football. You try and do too much, which costs you games.
How have you seen the game change over the journey? It was a vastly different game back in 2002 when you started.
Yeah, professionalism has definitely taken a few steps up, but. So footy's continue to evolve. They've had that many things, from the flood to Clarko's, where you press, everyone now presses the front end of the ground. It went through a stage where all the kickback and waste times to now all the handball link up and stats. So it's amazing how much the game has changed in 16 years.
Do you enjoy it as much? Yeah, that's game number 1.
Yeah, I do. I do remember that. I remember my first foot was actually first kick was a right footer on the full. I remember my first proper touch was a slide pick up the Crawford and kick the goal.
Got into a fight, that's good.
And I used to be a Richmond supporter, so I was packing myself right then and there when Brad Otten's got his arms around me.
Can I ask you about your experiences with Alistair Clarkson? He's been one of the great coaches of the modern era. But when he first came back from London or studying one of the soccer clubs, and he wanted to do the cluster, and you weren't going to play on anybody, you were going to guard some space. That must have been a sort of a weird feeling that you were at the forefront of what was either going to be cutting edge and successful, or cutting edge and really horribly poor.
Yeah, Clarko's come up with a lot of those. That him and David Rath and a lot of the coaching staff that I guess go and see a lot of clubs from overseas. But he's tried a lot of things at training, and we realised they haven't worked. But he came up with the stuff how we're squeezing up to a certain position and keep the ball in our end of the ground. And then we tried it at training, and it just didn't work. But we had to understand that it was a full 18 man, and couldn't, if one bloke's out of position, and that's what really put the importance on every person communicating and being in a certain spot, which seemed to work for us.
We've had the box. I remember there was an expose of the forward box where the 4 forwards were in the corners of the square. Then there was the cluster, and then there was the Kingy expose of the bubble. I'm not sure whether this terminology permeates through the playing group, but each and every year there just does seem to be this expansion on the tactics.
Yeah, I think every club, and that's the talk about how the game goes. The game continues to evolve. One club will do something well, and another club will try and copy it, then improve it. And I think we've done that a lot from other teams, and no doubt teams have done that from Clarko's coaching style as well.
Hodge, Jared's just talking about those tactics and the new inventions coming in, or the way your game's evolved at Hawthorn. But obviously it only works if you have really good on-field leadership. And the thing that struck me playing against you boys was you had 5 or 6 guys that were good directors, very vocal with each other. Was that a natural... When did that become a big part of your game, especially? Because that was a standout in your career for mine, especially in the latter half.
I think the most important thing is the people that teach it to the players. And that's what we went through a stage where we had a lot of ex-school teachers as coaches. And the way they explained it to us was so easy for us to pick up, and then we could pass on to the younger guys. So we went through where Fags is a school teacher, Brendan Bolton's a school teacher, Clarko was a school teacher. I know there's a couple others in there that I've probably forgotten. But the way they explained it to the players, and we understood it totally, and then we could pass it on to the guys. And then when you're out in the footy field, it comes second nature, because it just rolls off the tongue, because that's how you talk at training. That's how they've taught you, and you just pass it on.
When was the first time that you were told that you need to be like that out in the field? Because it's hard to do, to be vocal, not get caught up in your own game, but to think about teammates and be vocal and direct them. When did it first strike you that you had to do it?
I think I've always tried to do it. I know I played seniors at a young age in Colac, and the senior guys down there would always tell blokes what to do, where to go, and I think you always follow the blokes that were in front of you. We had some really good defenders at Hawthorn that sort of led the way. Mark Graham wasn't known as much for his, I guess, because he played full back, underman on a lot of full forwards, but his direction and talk for a lot of guys made you feel comfortable. So you learn off the blokes that actually played with you. You've
tried to have an influence on the culture, a significant influence on the culture. Just let us in a little bit. You were mic'd up a few weeks ago for the game in Adelaide, and I just want to play the post-game where the siren had gone, you had your downtime, the song was about to be sung. We'll just play this and get your thoughts on this.
Get out. Get him out.
Hey, you don't say that. Just thought that was interesting. The cameramen were trying to get in, obviously, in on the middle of your circle there, and you're just trying to set the standard for these younger guys?
I'll actually flat that the camera got that, because it actually reflects bad on Birdo. Birdo's a ripping kid, and all he was doing was a few senior guys telling the cameraman to hop out because we just want to sing the song. And I just sort of said to him that leave it to the older guys. If Ruff doesn't want him in there, let Ruff kick him out. Coming from a younger guy, probably doesn't look as good. And to Birdo's credit, his mate totally understand. I was only doing what the senior guys were saying as well. So it actually came across a little bit worse.
Your stamp on the culture per se, what are your thoughts on that?
I guess all we're there to do is give them tips and hints on the way that we think footy should be played and the way that young guys should go about it. And that's the thing, is the reason is we've been through it, we've made a lot of mistakes, and I think you learn from your mistakes, and all we can do as older blokes is just try and give them as much help and advice as we can.
Hodge, you're just talking about the older blokes. How heavily involved were you in the discussions surrounding Sam Mitchell and Jordan Lewis leaving at the end of last season, and whether you were and others were going to be a part of what the exit process was going to be?
Zero. I was at a friend's wedding up at Noosa and got a message saying that Mitch is going to Perth, and I'm like, no, he's not. He's got an agreement with Simo when he finishes, he's going over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that was a complete shock. And then 2 days later, Taz was on the same one. So I felt for Clarko and the coaches, because he rang me, I reckon, 5 times in the next 6 days. He was just ringing for a certain reason, but then he would always get back to explaining the process he was going through, and I understood exactly where he was coming from. It was making sure that the footy club in the future is in a lot better place, and getting new guys in for some older guys.
What about your conversation with Mitch and Louis at the time? How were they?
No, they were calm. I rang Mitch and said, what is it, a 50-50 chance of going? He goes, no, it's more like 95%. And they were both very, very calculated with their decision. I know Louis sat with Ruffy and went through teams that would suit him the best. So I think they both made good decisions.
You had to miss a game earlier this year, and Ruff, who's a great mate of yours and now captain, had to deliver the blow. Did that put a strain on your relationship?
Not at all. No, Ruff. I understood that they were in a position they had to make a tough decision, and that's the thing. Is I said to Ruff, I said, mate, whatever decision you come up with, whether I agree with it or not, I'm still going to support you. I'm still going to help you out. And I frequently catch up with Ruff, just a one-on-one, just to see how he's going and try and help where I can. But I've been in his position, and you don't take it personal, because you're trying to look after 40 blokes and trying to set a culture for those guys moving forward.
So my understanding is you failed to get to training on time following your brother's 21st. You also missed training follow your own 21st. So 21st is a weakness in your game.
Different reasons. My 21st, I think I followed up on a Sunday and had a big day as a young kid. Yeah. With Dylan's 21st, it was a total different reason why I missed training.
A lot of pressure on the AFL players at the moment. We're hearing a lot about the depression issue around the AFL circles. Where do you sit with the pressure that the media, and not so much social media, but just the broader media, their role in all this?
Look, I can understand why the media have so much to say, and they've got there's so many shows out there, there's so much papers they've got to sell, so I can understand why they're so pinpoint on every detail, but I can definitely understand where players are coming from. The amount of pressure you get, whether it's the social media of people sending you messages if you had a bad game or you're in bad form, whether it's a show talking about you or a paper writing a bad article, it's everywhere, and especially in Melbourne, Perth and Adelaide. In, I guess, Brisbane and Sydney, you can probably get away with a little bit more because it's more NRL, but especially in those 3 states, it'd be it's very tough to sort of get away from footy if you're not enjoying it.
I want to go back to your first time as captains. You've had a fantastic 2000, and he's laughing already, that's a worry. 2010 season, you have a fantastic time. You win the best and fairest. As I recall, the players' first day back at training is best and fairest day.
Yes. And
tell us what happened with Clarko and what transpired from there.
Oh, firstly, I was appointed captain that night at the BNF and had a lot of Coal Lake mates down, so we stayed at Crown. Clarko did say, he goes, when you're appointed captain, we don't want you to change. The reason why you're appointed captain is because you're a country lad, you have fun with your mates, and you're serious with the footy club. So I thought, fair enough. So I had a few mates down, and it was daylight savings where you lose an hour. So a few of us were still, I think, in the mahogany room having a couple of beers, and then a few of the boys went down to our beach session at 5 o'clock. And then I tried to give a bit of a pep talk because a few boys were late and didn't quite understand what I was saying. And Clarko side gave us a little bit of a tickle up, saying it's the first chance you could, first chance you had to talk as a captain, and look what you did. So I thought I did the right thing, and I didn't change. But to his, a few of the boys thought it was funny, but Clarko didn't.
Changes sweeping through the club. One of the changes has been the inclusion of Tom Mitchell. The club started off really slowly, but he hasn't, and he's continued it on. It's been a great season by him.
Yeah, it has. I think a lot of the guys, because we had so many guys from other clubs come into our footy club, plus the younger guys playing. But one thing Tommy has done, he's continued to find the footy. But what I've noticed is the last 5 or 6 games, I think he's had 12 games in a row of 30 plus, which is outstanding. But I think his last 5 or 6 weeks, he's starting to understand where his teammates are going to be. So the stat there where he had 50, I probably agree that Pendlebury was the best player on the ground in that game, but his last month of football, he's been consistently one of our best players because he understands how to get the ball, but more importantly, understands his teammates around him, where they're going to be, where the wingers are going to be, where the other midfielders are. So he's starting to blend with the rest of the guys.
What are the other big recruits, Jager O'Meara? How's he tracking, mate?
He's obviously had a tough year. Throughout pre-season, you're just that many people saying how good he was. You'll struggle to find a fault with him, just with how mature he was for a young age, with I guess what he's been through. He's obviously had another hiccup, but he's still training hard. He's still getting a goal to try and play towards the end of the year. But there's no doubt he's obviously had some frustrations, just the fact that he wants to play footy and he can't. But he can see the light at the end of the tunnel, and he aims to play some games this year.
So as you move into another phase in your life, you may well become an All-Australian selector or a coach or an assistant coach. Eventually, you're going to have to pick a team of some description. Now, it is rural round here at Fox Footy, and you and the Rough have got together and picked your best 22 from the rural area.
All right, next one. I'm not sure about this fella.
Maybe do that one next.
This bloke's been out of form lately.
Probably not on current form.
Probably
mate.
on kind of blokeies. I reckon I should put him on the bench.
Nah, mate, if, again...
All right, I might have to put you down in the forward pocket. There's a couple other big dogs, rather than you, they're going to get the full forward spot.
Okay. Next, I'll go with... this is a bit of IOU. Look who I've got here. We need a general to just, look after the half-back line.
Not man up.
Not man up, yell and point, not run much, so we'll put him at half-back flank.
See what I find amazing about that, Hodge, and I believe the whole team's going to be announced on Friday night. You've picked your best rural 22, and both you and Ruffy, the selectors, have got each other in.
Without a doubt, and we're both co-captains.
You've got only a few remaining games left. Is there anybody on the list that you desperately want to beat, or is there anybody that you've had a great rivalry with that you'd love one more crack at?
I'd love to have a go at Paddy this week. Pretty good mates with Paddy Dangerfield.
Yep.
Apparently I'm going to Geelong just because we've got a good connection. But no, look, I think playing along, I do see the Western Bulldogs game, last one, someone with Bob Murphy. There's so many blokes through there that you respect. We're playing Buddy in a couple of weeks. You've got Sale this week, so you go through. There's definitely games that you're really looking forward to finish off.
Who's the best team there? Who's the best team this year?
Yes, every week I think you change your mind. I think that's been the best part about footy this year is every week you look at that team and go, they're unbeatable, and then all of a sudden someone will knock them off the next week. So I think that's why it's such an exciting season.
Who's the best player you've played against, mate?
There's Gaz Ablett is up there, Juddy's up there, and probably Bud. They're three blokes that automatically come to mind that when I watch them play, it's like whether you're playing against them or just watching them on TV, you sit back and just enjoy the way they went about it.
It's ironic and in some ways fitting that your 300th is against Geelong. They must be great memories.
Yeah, we've had a really good history for 11 games in a row. We kept losing to them, but I think we've had some big occasions. I think they're two teams that really respect one another, and hopefully we can have a better performance this week than what we did round 4 this year.
It was an amazing year at the Super Draft. We've got a photo draft that you came through, and there's some incredible names. We talk about the top 3, but Bartel was a late pick, and Gary Ablett was a late pick.
Who's that?
Juddy's got hair. It's amazing. But so that was 16 years ago, a long time. But you look through the draft. Gaz was in there, Sam Mitchell was in there, Brian Lake was in there, Stevie Johnson, James Kelly. There was so many blokes that went on to have sensational careers.
Luke Beveridge was in after the grand final, and we sent him out the only fitting way. After 300 games coming up, I think there's only one fitting way to send you off. It's been a fantastic career, boys. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
A job well played. Brilliant stuff, and good luck against the Cats.